We'll bring the meeting to order, and prior to the open session, council met for a closed meeting, moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Marshall, pursuant to Section 239(2) and 3 of the Municipal Act, SO 2001 C25 is amended. Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound moved to a meeting closed to the public in order to address matters pertaining to A, the security of property of the municipality or local board, potential development project, audit, questions of council, CP station. B, personnel matter about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, local board. And C, a proposed or pending acquisition of land for municipal or local board purposes, request for proposal. And that was carried and dealt with. Okay. Any prioritization of the agenda? Councillor Borneman. Hopefully there's
no one here. I thought everyone could hear me. Oh. Could we move item 951 up, please?
Okay. Any other items? No? Okay. Mover and seconder for the agenda, please. Councillor Marshall, Councillor McCann. That the council agenda for September 5th, 2017 be approved as amended. All in favor? That's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none. Mover and seconder for the minutes. Councillor Saulnier, Councillor Borneman. That the minutes from the council meeting held August 8th be approved as circulated. Any questions? Discussion? No? All in favor? That's carried. Questions of staff? Councillor Keith, and then Councillor Borneman, and then Councillor Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one short question for Mr. Brown, and that has to do, I realize, just a preface, I realize that the railroad track, we don't own the railroad track and so many feet on each side of it. But the railroad track on Cascade Street, it seems to me, since the CNR was out there and doing their work, whenever you go that track now, I swear I need a new muffler, and I'm wondering, what's the possibility? I didn't need one till I went over this weekend, so I'm wondering, what's the possibility of maybe sending a letter to say, could we smooth this down a little bit before there's a whole lineup beside me at the garage needing new mufflers?
Mr. Brown?
Through your worship, CN has informed me that they are still intending to come back and make repairs to that particular crossing. CN has not given me any indication on when, but because they've left town to move on to other things, but they said they were coming back. That's all I can suggest right now. I can contact them again, but I'm sure I'll get the same response.
Well, I would hope that you would contact them again. The wheel that does the squeaking gets the grease. And like I said, I know my muffler was okay a day ago.
Contact our friend Drew and see what he can do. Councillor Borneman, you're next.
Mr. Brown, my query, or maybe more than one, is with respect to Emily Street. Work seems to be dragging on. There are folks in the neighborhood who are not entirely happy. I just wonder what the holdup is and whether or not we expect the work to be completed through the course of this season, and if there are impacts on the financing that we receive through the province to undertake that project.
Through your worship, this is a job that's going to take some time, but it has taken some time. Respectfully, I'm hoping that the neighborhood remains patient to make sure that the work gets done, and that they realize that when the work is done, it will look like a very nice job. It will be well done. It'll be professionally done. But I understand that, that people sort of are losing their patience a little bit, getting a little frustrated by the amount of noise, the traffic issues, the dust, but that's all part of a construction job. The contractor has been, I won't say delayed, but slowed down from the amount of rock that was there. There was some issues with the height of the bell lines that were getting in their way. Having said that, the contractor also knew that that's what was going on. That's what they bid on. So the town and staff have been pushing them very hard to ensure that the work gets done on time. I'm still hopeful that we'll get to the first lift stage of the job on Emily Street. All the underground works will be completed, and that the first layer of asphalt will be down for the winter. It is, it's my wish and goal to make sure that everything's done by the end of 2017. But the contractor has to pick it up. They're not quite at the top of the hill yet, and they need to get there. They need to get beyond that. So we're working hard with them to make sure that they keep moving as hard and as quickly as they can. But again, I appreciate everybody's patience there, but as it's the only way in and the only way out of that area, traffic is a problem. So people need to be patient there. With regards to the funding, I'm confident that the funding will not be jeopardized because of the amount of time that it's taken. We'll be sending off a letter to the various ministries to make sure that if there is a requirement to extend the job, that they allow us that opportunity. But we want that in writing from them.
Councillor Marshall?
Well, Councillor Borderman did take one of my questions about Emily Street, but I have another one for Mr. Brown. We've recently had our speed reduction zones, the signs up over the last couple of weeks. Just a question to you is how effective has that been? Have you had any discussions with the OPP as far as enforcement? I've seen a lot of people blowing through the 40 zones doing 70 or 80. I had one guy behind me last week shaking his fist. I was doing 40 kilometers an hour. So just how are we doing with that?
Brown?
Your Worship, I'll try and keep my personal comments out of this discussion. We've installed over 30 signs, almost 40 kilometer an hour signs posted. The OPP have been notified well in advance. We have actually put up our traffic counter, which also identifies speeds on a certain location on Church Street, just to see how it's going. So it'll be taken down probably, I think, Thursday. We like to keep it out for a week. Are the signs effective? I don't think the 50 kilometer signs were effective, but again, I'm bringing my personal opinion into this, so I'll stop. The OPP are aware, and we're hoping that they are diligently going after the people that are going over the speed limits.
Okay. Anything further? Nope. Okay. Correspondence, Ms. Box.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. First letter is from Wendell Fisher, who's a resident of Parry Sound. He wrote a letter to council and mayor regarding the town's initiative to have a report prepared regarding the cessation of train whistling at the 5 crossings here in town. Mr. Fisher wanted to indicate he is not in support of this, and he has listed his reasons why within the letter. That was circulated to mayor and council and forwarded to the Director of Public Works for follow-up. The second letter was from Thomas Butno, who is a McDougall resident. I understand this letter was handed to council at the last meeting on August the 8th. He has concerns with used needles surfacing at the local beaches and playgrounds and is requesting support from Parry Sound to open a treatment center. This was circulated to mayor and council and forwarded to the CAO for follow-up. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 AMO watch files from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario dealing with municipal industry news, circulated to mayor and council and forwarded for inclusion in the e-agenda. And the last item is Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, FONOM's news release. And the release indicates that the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry has committed to delaying the posting of the draft Species at Risk Guide. There was quite a hue and cry that local people were not consulted about it, local First Nations were not consulted about it, so they're going to put that on hold until they do some more consulting. And that was circulated to mayor and council and forwarded for inclusion in the agenda, and that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you. So we come to the deputations portion of tonight's meeting, and we have one deputation. And it is Giselle Bodkin, CPA, CA, BDO Canada, and welcome. You're doing the year-end report for council. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I will try to be very brief on just some comments on the financial statements. So you received three things. One is the year-end report, and one was an audit letter, communication, and one was a financial statement. I am not going to go through the audit letter, but I just wanted to highlight a few things. First of all, I want to thank Trevor and his staff for a job well done and communicating very well with the auditor over the audit. Second thing I wanted to say is that in this letter, you'll notice that our materiality is around $604,000, and that's standard for audits. It's about 2% of your expenses, in case you wanted to know. And on page 5 on this letter, it just talks about our audit issues that we had. We have several issues we go through and how we handled them. I'm not going to go through each issue, but one thing that comes to my attention is the WSIB accrual. We recommended to Trevor to hire an actuary to get the proper WSIB actuarial report and to accrue that on our financial statements. And you'll see there's some discussions on landfill and some other items related to your audit. The other thing on this audit letter is page 11 just has communication we want to give to you. And if you went to page 10 and 11, you'll see a whole list of things. And it says, basically it says, here's our communication required. And on the right-hand side, it has our auditors, which says no such instances. So it was a clean bill of health for Trevor and his team. And you can read that at your leisure. And we will be communicating that to you every year. So I'm just going to go through the year-end report quickly so you know. I'll put it up on the screen here. So basically, when we do an audit, the first thing we have to do is what are we auditing? And as you can see, the Corporation of Town of Parry Sound includes some other boards that we have to audit and consolidate into these financial statements. One of our issues was when you look at the unconsolidated joint boards, we had to go through and look at that to see if we should be consolidating or not consolidating them. And that was a bit of a concern to us because if we should have been and the other auditors didn't, we would have to do a prior period adjustment. Anyways, we came to the conclusion that these did not have to be consolidated in with your numbers, which we're happy to report to Trevor. So what I like to do is when I'm looking at a municipality, especially for the first time, and if you're a first-year councillor or a third-year councillor, it's nice to see where the town has been and where you're going. So I usually look at the last 5 years, and if you see that blue line at the top, that is your revenue, and the red line is your expenses. Now, as a town, usually revenue would equal expenses because you do a break-even budget. However, you have to have more revenue because you buy capital assets, roads, buildings. So most municipalities, the revenue is higher than the expenses because the capital assets, your TCAs, are not expensed. So then when you come down here, you say, well, what was our annual surplus, for financial statements, and what were our capital asset additions? Now, one would look at this schedule and go, well, our surplus is pretty low compared to the money we've spent on capital assets. But your surplus includes about $5 million of depreciation. So if you were to add the $5 million to here, you would see, in a perfect world, your surplus plus depreciation would equal your capital assets. Now, you might have some towns that it doesn't happen all the time because you're not going to spend the money on the road for another 5 years. So you're building up your surplus and your reserves. So next report I had is, this is called your net financial assets. So your net financial assets are all your assets you have minus all your liabilities. Now, some towns, this can be negative because they've borrowed money to build TCAs, but they haven't collected it from the taxpayer yet. So when I look at this, this is a very healthy town. You have 10 million in assets, but tomorrow you could spend 10 million in TCAs and wipe it out in 1 year, depending on what your 5-year capital plan is. So you always have to balance that capital plan with your financial surplus. I'm not going to go through that. So the other thing I look at is, where did you get your revenue 5 years ago, and where are you getting your revenue today? You can see that these numbers are pretty close. For me as an auditor, I'm looking for trends. I'm looking for something that would be unusual. So the town is almost exactly the same where you got your revenue 5 years ago and where you got your revenue today. And then I also look at your expenses. What composed your expenses 5 years ago, and where are they today? And again, almost the same balance of expenses. So nothing much has changed in the way the town has been managed. The last part of the report, is a lot of other councils said, well, how are we doing compared to the other towns? Because you only look at one town. So it's very interesting to look at other towns and how are you comparing to them. So I did kind of an industry comparison of some of the towns I audit. So remember, the net financial assets are all your assets minus your liabilities. So you can see the town of Parry Sound at the top. You can see like 5 million, 8 million, 8 million. You can see town 2 is actually negative. They have more liabilities than they have assets. So probably that town is a growing town, maybe spent 100 million on TCAs, but they're going to get that back over the next few years from the taxpayers. You can see town 3 has almost 53 million. Town 5 is about the same. And then I looked at what are other towns spending each year on TCAs, and also kind of what their revenue is. So you can compare, maybe your town is the smallest town of the ones that I had done. Town 2 has about 50 million of revenue. So this is just for your information to look through. But again, there was nothing that we saw when we compared your town to others. Now, interesting enough, revenue, if I take your revenue where you're getting your money and compare it to my industry average, the big difference was development contributions, because a lot of the municipalities I do are north of Toronto, and they're getting a lot of money with development contributions and putting in subdivisions and that kind of stuff. So that was the big thing that I noticed. And at the end of the report is just different things if you're on different boards on what you should do as audit committee and different things like that. So all in all, it was a very good audit. I don't know what I'm doing for time, Trevor. I'm okay. So I just wanted to quickly highlight a few things on the financial statements. So I think you have that in front of you. And the most important thing when you're reading a financial statement is to look at page 2, because it's our auditor's report. And the second last paragraph says, in our opinion, these financial statements present fairly the financial information of the Parry Sound town. So in other words, it's a clean audit opinion. Page 3 discloses your assets and liabilities that I was just talking about. The top is your financial assets, 15 million of cash, 3 million of short-term investments. And then you have an investment in Lakeland Holdings, which was the power company. And you have accounts receivable from taxpayers of about 2.4 million. So all of that is around 27 million of assets. And then if you look at your payables, you have accounts payables of about 3.7 million, and you have long-term debt of 14.4 million, which is around 19 million. So 27 minus 19 is about 8 million of assets. So in a perfect world, if you paid off your debt, collect all the money, you'd have 8 million sitting in the bank. Now, and then you have about 120 million in tangible capital assets, which is your roads, your buildings, And a long time ago, we never had to put those assets on your financial statements. This was a new PSAB thing that came in how long ago, Trevor? Anyways, we had to go back 100 years on towns and put the assets on their books. I don't know who came up with that idea, but it wasn't me. So the other thing, the next page is basically looking at your income statement, which is page 4. And it shows you where all your revenue comes in, plus your budget, and all your expenses. So again, you can see last year you had a surplus of about $743,000. This year, 1.7. You might say, well, how does that tie into Trevor's surplus? You have to remember, Trevor is doing a surplus based on how much money you took in and how much you paid on tangible capital assets and depreciation. So it's a little bit different than my financial surplus. But if you compare this budget, you were budgeting a financial surplus of 3.2. This is before your capital assets. And your actual is 1.7. So the next page might be a little more interesting to kind of understand. Page 5. You take your annual surplus of 1.7 million. You deduct about 8 million of capital assets that you spent this year, 7.9 million, and you add back depreciation of 5 million. So overall, there was a slight negative cash flow of about 400,000 this year and about 500,000 last year. But again, remember, you have about 8 million sitting there. So there's money that's received from the taxpayer in order to pay for these capital assets in the future. So that's how that kind of all ties in. And the last of the notes, there really wasn't anything to highlight in the notes to the financial statements. Some of the things we highlight is lawsuits. We highlight your line of credit facility, which is up to $4 million. We highlight information about a pension plans for owners. And just our standard disclosures. So there was nothing in here that wouldn't be in any other municipality in Ontario that I have to bring to council's attention. So again, I'm opening the floor to any questions or concerns. And I want to thank council for appointing BDO as your audit team. I thank you for your trust. And it was a good experience. We will be back hopefully in June next year. We had some issues. Somebody broke a tailbone. Anyways, so that's why there's a little bit of delay in the audit. But other than that, it was fine.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Marshall.
Just a quick question. When you did the comparison with other towns, are those, I'm assuming those are real towns? Those
Yes,
are how they
yes,
fabricated.
yes.
Are those comparable size towns, or how do those work to, as far as population based to Parry Sound or tax base?
That's a good question. I guess if you look at page, probably page 11, you can see these towns are ones that I do audit. Now, it's because I can get the information very easily. Otherwise, I'd have to open up everybody's website. And this was just easier for me to do. But if you look at town of Parry Sound is around 29 million here, and the next closest town to you is probably town 2. This town was like 40 million and now it's 50 million. That might be Stouffville or, we do Newmarket. There's a whole bunch in the GTA we do. I can get the information from some other towns, but it's more just keeping our costs down and investing in getting the information. But anybody can go on any website at any town and pull up this information. And if there's other towns you want me to compare you to, just let Trevor know. And next year, I'll go into their website and pull the information.
Very good. Any further questions? Did you have a follow-up? Oh, Councilor McCann?
Yeah, it was just a quick question. I'm just trying to locate where I had noticed it originally, but there was a big increase in donations in revenue this past year. What accounts for that?
Okay.
Are you looking at the financial statements?
Treetops, I bet, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Is it treetops, Trevor?
Having trouble finding it again here.
Through your worship, I don't have it right in front of me, but treetops was about $170,000 last year. That would be the big one. There was also a contributed capital asset last year, and I'm trying to remember what. Oh, the town dock gazebo was also contributed. So those are the reasons why there would be that significant increase.
Thanks. Actually, I forgot about treetops there for a moment, but thank you.
Okay. Anything further? No? Okay. Thank you very much. And we're
Thank
going
you,
to
Your
deal
Worship.
with, we're going to deal with the bylaw now so that you can be here.
thank you, Your
for
Worship.
that. Actually, we'll move that up right now and then she can be on her way. Uh, 951. 951. Yep. Okay. So moved by Councillor Horn and seconded by Councillor Saunier that Council of the Town of Parry Sound is hereby approve the draft audited consolidated financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2016 as attached in Schedule A. Any discussion? All in favor? And that's carried, none opposed. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Bodden. Thank you. Safe travels. Yeah. Okay, so next. Back to the regular routine. Yep. Where are we right now? Deputations. Yep. Reports. We'll start with Councillor Keith tonight.
Okay, well, my report will be nice and sweet and short. In July time, I did attend the Community Policing Advisory Committee meeting, the quarterly meeting. Overall, statistics seem to be fairly stable for the quarter and in comparison to last year, so I had no major concern there. The other thing I would say for the rest of August time, I was away. I went to the Yukon and Alaska to see all about the Great North and the animals, etc. Along my way, though, I stopped at a number of communities, northern communities, and again attended their town office, and I enjoyed Whitehorse. The people there were really hospitable to me. Not only gave me a beautiful brooch that the mayor has, gives to people. It was really gorgeous. But I got to go around and see how their community operates, and I did send a few ideas to the staff here just to show what some people are doing in other communities. And the last thing I would say in my trek, which I thought was important because I did take my iPad and try to read my emails, fairly diligent, even though it was vacation, and that would be in respect to vandalism. I am concerned because I'd read articles again and the concern about the vandalism that has occurred in our washrooms. And going around to some of the other communities, I find in one way, not that it's good, but the town of Parry Sound is not the only community that seems to have some problems along the washroom line and the vandalism. And I did take some photographs that I do plan to send to Mr. Brown, not on the iPad, but the bottom line being in one community, and it was a good-sized community. They have 4 monitors and signage on the outside telling you before you enter the washrooms that there are 4 monitors for security purposes so that you have a better idea of who's going into the washroom. The other thing that I have found in some of these communities also, they impressed upon me the importance of not only having the monitors, but having a staff person going into the washroom on a regular basis on interviews there during the day to also check to see what is going on and to discourage it. But it's certainly something that other communities are facing the trials to, but seem to march on and do their best in this area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Marshall?
Yes, good evening, everybody. Now that summer's over, my committees will be once again meeting through the month of September. That said, I did have a few things going on through August. For example, I was part of the hiring committee to find a replacement for our outgoing head librarian, Andrea Gaspar. We met 3 times throughout the summer, including interview a number of highly qualified applicants for the position. In the end, we end up hiring Rita Orr, who will be starting in the new position as head librarian on the 2nd of October. We're thrilled to have Ms. Orr on board and look forward to her taking over her responsibilities in a month's time. I also had the opportunity to represent the town and the mayor at the Parry Sound Downtown Car Show on August 19th. The rain held off long enough for me to go around and check out the cars. Several trophies were given out on that day, including my favorite car. Got to give a trophy out to the owner and the restorer of a beautiful 1928 Hudson Super 6. Car is a little older than me, but the thing looked like it just came off out of the showroom. Just a quick reminder as well, talking to Mr. Brown about the recent speed reductions. Keep an eye out, they're out there. It says maximum 40 kilometers an hour. Try to keep within that speed limit. And just another reminder that today was the first day of school. Schools are back, kids are on the road, buses are out there, so just be mindful of that after 9 weeks of summer. And that's my report.
Thank you. Councillor Borneman?
Thank you, Your Worship. I've had a little busier August, I guess. August 10th, the Industrial Park Board met. Business as usual, pretty much. We did receive further update and some costing with respect to providing high-speed internet to the park. We'd be remiss not to thank West Parry Sound Smart Community for the role they've played in maybe help broker this relationship between Vianet and Bell out there. I did miss a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment that occurred at the exact same time. No speeding on Nobel Road for me. August 14th, the Airport Commission met. Continue to work with the proponents of the Phase 7 development, and I think we're getting closer to that project moving ahead. Might as well mention now this Saturday, the 9th of September, between 10 and 4 is the 14th annual airport fly-in. Come out and test a hot dog or a hamburger if you dare. Councillor Keith often sends her emissary, but I've never seen her come through just yet. So I'm thinking this weekend will be the one. We also attended a meeting of the Belvedere Board. We welcomed our newest member, Karen Ainsley, who's been recently appointed by the province. We heard a deputation from the CAO of Castleholm, a similar municipally owned facility in North Bay, Jamie Lowry, regarding their redevelopment and the work that's gone into that. We also heard from Elaine Meltz, the Friends of Belvedere. Elaine has a real energetic bunch of followers who have, is that fair, Mr. Mayor? I don't want to misspeak.
They are very energetic, which is good.
They've been very helpful to the home for a number of years, recycling bottles and cans. She tells us that this project is taken off and growing exponentially. Her cadre of folks are aging and dwindling in number, so she's looking for any help that she can get in this. She can be reached at Laine, Laine 451 at gmail.com or 746-4545. She says people with half-ton trucks are especially welcome. They're hosting a lasagna dinner October 30th at Belvedere at 5 p.m. The cost is $20 for adults and $10 for children under 12. On the 16th, I attended the welcoming for the board of the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund at the Stocky Centre. They were holding their summer meetings here in Parry Sound through that week. We should thank Mr. Beatty, our local representative, for arranging that. Earlier in the day, Minister Michael Gravel had announced $1 million in funding to Croft Industries, which for the expansion that they've undergone, which is certainly beneficial to the local economy. On the 18th, I volunteered at the Bobby Orr Golf Classic. The weather wasn't great, but I think a good time was had by all. Thanks should go out to John Green and his crew, who do a spectacular job of pulling this together, to the Stocky Center staff, particularly Cheryl Ward, who I learned that evening will soon be leaving us for her second go at retirement. And of course to Mr. Orr, a great hockey player and an even better person. Thank you for all you do for Parry Sound. On the 19th, I too attended the DBA car show. Weather wasn't great, but there were still over 90 entries. One fellow told me that he finished restoring his car in 2007, and that was the first time that it had seen rain. So 90 on a day. These folks are pretty particular, so 90 entries on a not great day was pretty good. I took the star attraction was Batman and the Batmobile. I took a bunch of pictures for people, including the mayor, who lined up. My granddaughter pointed out the only thing she remembered about Batman was that he had a pink cell phone. So it was well attended, and I think a good thing. I joined Councillor Marshall in his warning to people to be careful out there. And finally, I want to close by sending a shout out to former Mayor Adams, who I understand is suffering some health issues. Richard, we all hope you get well and back out marching the streets to keep us informed about what's happening out there in the near future. And that's my report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to your mention about Ms. Meltz and the Belvedere support group there. They really do appreciate the bin at the McFarland transfer station where the bottles are being collected. That really has helped them a lot. So, Councillor McCann.
Thank you very much. You're all taking all the words out of my mouth here this evening. So, but anyhow, just based on, and in addition to what Councillor Borneman was reporting on Belvedere Heights, the deputation was very interesting from Castleholm. A big problem in this province, or at least in Northern Ontario, is that district-owned homes cannot raise or finance their own, seek their own financing based on their own equity. And there's a movement that is afloat right now to try to get that changed. The redevelopment, or the planned redevelopment that Castleholm has, was very interesting to listen to, and their numbers in terms of breach of compliance dropped. Their grievances from the unions dropped, so they've been doing a fantastic job. So we're looking to reinvent the wheel, I suppose, as we go on into the future. Funding has always been and always will continue to be a challenge at the home. So indeed, that was interesting. Capital projects, having some problems with our generator right now. Of course, just after the extended service coverage expired, then the main gaskets blew, and we're looking for some second opinions on how to get everything fixed. Also on our radar, we're planning for 2018 strategic planning, and we have our AGM coming up on October, Paul, do you remember? Anyways, it's coming up in October. I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Anyhow, also, but back on the 18th, I, along with the mayor and other councillors and staff, attended the Trestle Brewing groundbreaking, and that's interesting. It's Endeavour's very exciting project for the company and for the town. It will be an asset in many ways, and we wish them all the best of luck. They, like companies like Crofters, continue to put Parry Sound on the map. And if I could add, my own 2 cents with regards to Elaine and her crew, the Friends of Belvedere. They really need a succession plan. They're getting tired, and in collecting cans and bottles, recyclables, this took on a whole life of its own, and they've raised some $50,000 over the last 6 or 7 years. And this is the money that goes to cover everything from pots and pans to dishes to blankets and all of the little extras that the residents get to benefit from. So they are looking for help, and if you would contact Elaine or contact Belvedere, they'll put you in touch with her. She'd love to hear from you. And October 19th, 6:30 p.m. in the auditorium, that's when Belvedere's AGM is set for. Everyone is invited, and that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sonia.
Good evening, everyone, those in attendance, those watching on television. Also on October 19th, that's my birthday, so if you want to come out with me after Doug's thing. My report, we were working really hard July and August. That's kind of what we do in Parry Sound, 7 months of the year. We make decent money, but really only July and August is where so many of us earn our living. Something came up that was really interesting that I want to share with you guys is there's another boat that's looking into coming into the Great Lakes. This ship is, we met with representatives from France, and they want to come into, they're auditioning towns to see what different towns have to offer as far as ports of call. Parry Sound's very high on the list. We get rave reviews and high marks from both the Victory and the Pearl Mist. The Pearl Mist comes a dozen times a year now, and we fill buses. It fills buses, it fills shops. People are all over town when they come. They love Parry Sound. They can't wait to come back on a separate vacation. So I can't stress the importance enough of these ships to the local economy, especially ones where you have years like this year where it's been tough. For a lot of us that are in tourism, it's been raining a lot. And we're dealing with water, not just here. I mean, Lake Ontario is up. Toronto Island Airport's closed down. So there's a whole bunch of different things that tourism is not doing that well. And a resource like a ship is a hot commodity. Now, this person wants to come in and bring in a large ship the size of the Victory. So what Ms. Madaw set up was a group of people that could take them around town. So this is businesses or locals that have an interest in bringing these people in that do a good job of selling the town of Parry Sound, their representatives, if you will. And the main thing that struck me after meeting this person is we've always been really thankful for being a Canadian. Sometimes we take that for granted. But now Europeans want to come here because it's safe, because it's somewhat undiscovered still. The Great Lakes are raw, rugged, but you don't see a lot of things that make the news like you see in other parts of the world. You don't see a lot of violence. So not only are we proud to be Canadians, but that is starting to rub off on the rest of the world. So I can only hope that Ms. Madon, and if you could speak to, I would ask you to speak to at some point about all the different boats that are coming into the area, because it's really exciting. There isn't just 1, 2, or 3 now. There's a lot of them, and it's pretty cool. So thank you for your work.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Horn.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everyone is enjoying their summer tonight. So just to echo what Councillor Borneman said, I had the opportunity to play in the Bobby Orr Celebrity Classic on August 18th. I would like to thank Councillor Borneman and all the volunteers that came out. John Green and his committee did a fabulous job that day. Stocky Centre staff. Thanks to Mr. Orr, who stood out in the rain all day because, yes, it did rain all day. And we certainly want to thank Mr. Orr for the time that he puts in for the golf tournament, the youth celebrations, Bobby Orr Hall of Fame induction ceremony. The amount of money that is generated from his efforts is just phenomenal for the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame and Stocky Centre. I'd like to thank Mr. Glenn Howard, our celebrity, who played with us and putting up with us for the day. We shot 14 under and we lost on a rainy day. That's how good the golfers were out there. So once again, thank you to all the Stocky Centre staff. Cheryl did a great job and looking forward to next year. I hope everyone enjoys tonight, our night of summer. Oh no, we're here at council.
Thank you. Council, staff, and public, August 12th to the 16th, I attended the AMO conference in Ottawa. August 12th and 13th, I had AMO board and executive meetings, and August 13th, we also had our Ontario Small Urban Municipalities Board meeting. August 13th, Peter Ketchum, the Reeve of the Archipelago, and I met with Parliamentary Assistant Lou Rinaldi and Ministry of Municipal Affairs staff to discuss planning considerations. August 14th, I attended a meeting with Canadian National Railway representatives, and hopefully we've got a contact now that we might get an answer out of Canadian Pacific about the Isabella Crossing. August 15th, I chaired a session on housing. Overall, the conference was really well attended. There were about 2,300 people in attendance, a lot of great sessions, and people seemed very happy with everything that went on. There was also a record number of ministers at the meeting too, which was really, really good, and some excellent questions. August 19th, I managed to have a quick look downtown at the car show and thank Councillor Bornman for taking a picture with myself and Batman. It was just before I had to head to Toronto to fly out to Saskatchewan. It had been about 10 years since my wife had been home to visit her family, so it was certainly long overdue. But I will say, while we were there, there was only about 1 hour of rain, and that was at night. Otherwise, it was sunny and hot. So, yeah, anyway, it was good. That's my report. On with the agenda. Okay. Moved by Councillor Horn, second by Councillor Saunier, that bylaw number 2017-6764, being a bylaw to declare town-owned property surplus as surplus, Part Roll 49 32 050 001 021 01, part of PIN 52117-0216 LT, part of lots 24 and 25, concession 1, shown as part 2 and 3 on Plan 42R 2597, Ministry Plan P-2153-59, Geographic Township of McDougall, District of Parry Sound, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. You all got that, eh? Right? All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Horn, second by Councillor Saunier, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Discussion. Councillor Horn?
Would it be helpful for the members of the public to actually know where this land is, rather than just the roll call?
Sure. Maybe Mr. Algie or Ms. Madaw could.
Through Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
So the property that has just been declared surplus by this, or will be declared surplus if you vote that way, through this bylaw is on Ulster Park Drive. It is property that the town purchased from MTO. MTO went through their disposal process, and the town has purchased the property. It is the council's intention to sell this property. So through our property disposal process, the first step that council has to do is declare the property surplus. So that's what's happening here. So it is property on Ulster Park Drive, just south. Not sure how far, Peter, Mr. Brown, do you know how far it would be? Pretty close. Yeah, so 500 to 1,000 feet from the corner, from the intersection.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Okay. Anything further? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Item 8.1, moved by Councillor Borneman, seconded by Councillor Marshall, that upon the recommendation of the Parry Sound Public Library Board, Nora Alexander be appointed as a member of the board as Parry Sound representative until November 30th, 2018. Any discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Item 8.2, moved by Councillor Saunier, seconded by Councillor Horn. Whereas childhood cancer is the #1 disease killing our children in Ontario, with over 400 children being diagnosed every year. And whereas the Northern Ontario Families of Children with Cancer NOFCC provides programs and services to all Northern Ontario families during and after their journey through childhood cancer. And whereas the NOFCC requests the support of the Council for the Town of Parry Sound through an official proclamation and flag raising to bring awareness to childhood cancer. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Parry Sound declares the month of September 2017 as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Any discussion? Councillor Horn?
Just in the title of the point 2, it says proclamation in September 2016.
I will correct that. Yeah, it's not in the resolution.
It's not on the resolution, though. Okay.
I'll correct
It's in, yeah, okay, all right. Okay. So we're good? All in favor? Right? Carried. Item 8.3, moved by Councillor McCann, seconded by Councillor Borneman, that blank at 6 p.m. be scheduled as a special closed council meeting for the purpose of staff succession planning, and that resolution 2017-139 be rescinded. Councillor McCann?
So the 2 nights that I wouldn't be available were the 27th of September and October the 11th.
I understand this is all your fault, right?
Pardon me?
I understand this is all your fault.
Yes,
why
it
we have
is.
to
I'm having
revisit it.
cataracts removed, actually, one at a time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you got to be able to see. Yeah,
This is true.
yeah. Councillor Borneman?
So, Mr. Menz, how much preparation time is needed before you folks will be ready to go ahead with this meeting?
Through Mr. Mayor, we would need, I would say, another 3 weeks anyway, and that would be optimistic.
Oh, then we're really October.
Yeah, yes, that would,
Okay.
I would think so, Mr. Mayor.
So what dates for you again?
For me was October 27th, oh, no, I'm sorry, September 27th and October 11th.
So was October 10th okay?
Well, actually, I have to head for Sudbury that evening, so,
Okay.
yeah, the
So
days
not-
before and after. But I'm just basically focusing on the
So
Tuesdays.
what about October 24th?
That would be fine.
Councillor Horn? Okay. October 23rd? Okay. Councillor Marshall, you had your hand up?
I was just going to say we don't necessarily have to have a
No, that's why I was, yeah. What about the 30th or the 31st?
Halloween?
Oh, wait, 30th then. Yeah, that's right. No, never mind. No, not the 31st. Huh? I do have I do have a meeting that night. I have another meeting that night. Is the 30th no good? 30th's fine? Yeah, okay.
Oh,
What?
Lynn's not here.
Okay. We're okay with that?
Well, without Lynn, it'll, boy. Yeah, it would. Ideally, we would have all of SLT and definitely all of council.
Yeah.
So pushing this too far. So the reality is Lynn is not here for the last 2 weeks of October, and I'm not here the first 2 weeks of November. So 18.
Yeah. October.
What do we ask Council Horn when he was here?
Good. Yeah.
So essentially, Mr. Mayor, we have 4 weeks where Lynn and myself are not going to be here. Her the first 2 weeks, well, the last 2 weeks of October, and me the first 2 weeks of November. So, yeah, whether we can get
Okay. October? That's a Friday. Friday the 13th, yeah.
Not very auspicious. You and I get married.
No, I'm in,
You're at OC.
yeah, yeah. Did we ask about the 9th? Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, okay. I see that now. I'm in Sundridge DSAB meeting. It's the evening. Yeah. November when? It's open.
yeah.
Oh, that's right. You're not. Oh. Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yep. Well, I think people need to realize that everybody has schedules, right? That you know, you do more than just come here to this particular meeting and.
Monday the 20th.
November 20th? What about the 27th? November. Yeah.
What year?
Wow.
How long are you anticipating that this meeting could continue?
Through Mr. Mayor, I don't expect it would be any less than 2 hours.
That apparently is a Belvedere meeting that Mr. Brown. You haven't confirmed it yet? Well, then I'm good if you haven't confirmed it yet. We can pick another date. Fine? October 2nd? October 2nd. Well, probably 6.
6 o'clock.
Yeah.
So what is it then? October 2nd.
What?
60. Oh, their tickets were $700.
Is that when it is? Is that when it is?
Yeah, that's the night.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, because I'm going too, so
Yeah.
we're out of here.
So unless we start early,
We're out of here. Well, let's try for
we
5:30.
start at 5 o'clock.
That's fine.
Well, I don't know whether I can get out of at 5 o'clock.
I can't. 5:30.
Yeah, so maybe 5:30.
4 o'clock? October 4. How about October 4? This is,
No, because I have to head for Toronto. I've got an MOU meeting in Toronto early the next day.
the 2nd.
So the
5:30.
2nd, 5:30. That starts at 8, Councilor Marshall? Okay, all right, good.
Apparently not.
Apparently not. Okay, so I'll put it in here. Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Hmm? Yeah? Thank you, everybody. Ooh, okay. Item 8.4, moved by Councillor Horn, seconded by Councillor Saunier. Whereas the province of Ontario has welcomed many peoples from around the world who have chosen this province as a place to start a new life in Canada, now as much as any other time in its history, and many of these immigrants undertake to learn English in order to communicate with their fellow Ontarians, allowing them to start the process of building productive and rewarding lives in their new country. And whereas this diverse and multifaceted group of learners of English as a second language can be found throughout all levels of society in Ontario, whether they are students in school at any level, teachers, researchers, caregivers, volunteers and workers, business owners and employees, professionals and laborers, all benefit from instruction in English as a second language and use that new knowledge to contribute to this province on an ongoing basis. And whereas our professional organization, TESL, Teachers of English as a Second Language, Ontario, hosts a conference each fall in downtown Toronto that features professional development in the form of workshops, keynote speakers, and diverse presentations for teachers of English as a second language to develop, update, and expand their knowledge base, skills, and abilities to aid newcomers to our province in their efforts to acquire English language skills. Now therefore be it resolved, the Mayor and Council do hereby proclaim October 29th to November 4th, 2017 as English as a Second Language Week in the town of Parry Sound. Discussion. All in favor? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman, seconded by Councillor McCann, that Council authorizes the Manager of Water Systems to attend the 2017 GE Drinking Water Users Group Conference to be held in Las Vegas, Nevada, September 19th, 20th, and 21st, 2017. Further to Bylaw 2002-4549, which requires prior Council approval for attendance at seminars, conferences, and conventions outside the province of Ontario. Discussion. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Horn, second by Councillor Saunier, that Council approves the installation of a public water dispensing system adjacent to existing commercial bulk water station located on Parry Sound Drive, and further, the Council authorized the transfer of up to $50,000 from the tax rate stabilization reserve to finance the project. Discussion. Councillor Saunier, Marshall, Borneman, and McCann.
That's all of us.
And Councillor Keith too.
Mr. Brown, so when this goes up, what do we expect the maintenance on something like this to be? We see $50,000 for the installation. We do a lot of projects such as the Stocky Center, or people want other projects that don't necessarily, it's not for the town of Parry Sound, but it's going to be for the greater area. So I want to know, what do we foresee, what kind of dollar value is going to be attached to maintaining and keeping this thing going? And then I have a follow-up.
Okay.
Through your worship, once it's installed and up and running, typically the maintenance is, the staff would go by once a week to take a look at it, to maintain it, but depending on the usage, they may have to go more often. We're hoping to do a wireless connection or an internet connection to it so that we can monitor it from the water plant using our SCADA system. But depending on the usage, which I'm sure will be fairly high, the staff will have to go there quite frequently. And it'll have to be maintained in the wintertime, plowed, sanded, salted, all that jazz.
Yep.
So I'm in favor, and I do support this. I am wondering if this shouldn't go to the 2018 budget as opposed to coming out of the tax rate stabilization. We do seem to dip into that every now and then, and we have another number of projects that are good for the community that people want to do, and I'm wondering how we can prioritize them, and I'm wondering if the budget season isn't the time to prioritize it, given that it's, before this is set up and going, it is possibly into October.
Mr. Mintz?
Through Mr. Mayor, one issue with that is that need, if I can use that word, to remove the service from the BOCC because of the safety issues, especially with winter coming. And I don't know whether this can, Mr. Brown, whether this can be constructed during the winter time or not.
Through your worship, this particular machine should be installed in any time other than winter.
Yeah.
We need to break into the ground. We need to make the connection to the 6-inch main that's there. So all that work has to be done in a regular construction season. So winter is not a good time to put this in. But we're running out of time as well, if I might add, because this is a 6 to 8 week build.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So Councillor Marshall, then you're next.
Yes. This is a lot of money for something that we're doing basically on goodwill for some of the district municipalities, and to saddle this onto the taxpayer of Parry Zone for $50,000, I have a problem with that. What kind of the report does venture into a user pay system. So if we had something like that, how would this work? Would this be kind of like a pop machine? Somebody puts a quarter in the jukebox and, gets money. So I'm trying to visualize what kind of system that this would work, and then, be what kind of, when we're looking at the $50,000 cost, is that including some type of system where we could actually charge people for the water, trying to capitalize or get some of the capital back for it, to pay for it over a period of 5 years, as opposed to saddling it on the taxpayers?
Through your worship, this does not include any form of payment. This is strictly a rather detailed water tap system. There's 2 taps coming out of this box. It wasn't designed for the use of using quarters or nickels or dimes or whatever to buy water, quote unquote. The town of Parry Sound has always provided free water service, as long as I've been here and longer, I think, for people wanting water. When I worked in Minden in 2007 and 2008, I came across a little village in Norland, just south of Minden, and they had a public water tap, and they charged 25 cents for 4 liters of water. Now, imagine 25 cents for 4 liters of water, how long it's going to take to pay off $50,000. It's an extremely long period of time. Mind you, this was 2007. We haven't set up the system where you can pay for water. If we're going to do that, that's going to delay this installation even more, because it's going to take several weeks to design this system. This is all sort of a hybrid. This is a brand new type of system. Typically, most municipalities that I've worked at have it on a wall of a building, and it says public tap. That's it. So because we don't have a lot of buildings that we can put these in or connect these to, we've come up with this plan to put it out there. So if council wants to start charging the public for water, which I think is a good idea as well, we have to go back to the drawing board to redesign this thing.
You have a follow-up?
To follow up with it, we're not only looking at the capital cost of $50,000, we're also looking at staff costs to maintain the system. We're looking at staff time to plow it, to salt it. It's going to be a lot more than $50,000. So I would suggest on this is perhaps to go back to the drawing board and see if we can get a system here that will be at least, we'll recover some of the costs and kind of build maybe a bit of a business model for it. It just seems to be a lot of money, and I agree with Councillor Sonia, dipping into the stabilization all the time for these projects, I don't think is the right way to do it. So maybe it's something we should look at for the 2018 budget.
Mr. Brown?
If I can add to your worship that we did we canvassed some of the municipalities to see what they do, other municipalities. As an example, Kawartha Lakes does charge for water. Espanola apparently does as well, but users must complete an application first. So it's fairly detailed. It can't just be Joe Public driving by with a jug of water, wants to fill it up. Powassan, there's no charge. Bancroft, there's no charge, but it's on their radar. Callender does not offer the services. Huntsville has a water tap on the water plant. Bracebridge has a public water tap on the reservoir. And I believe Gravenhurst has a water tap on their water plant. But they have the location, they have the parking, they have the accessibility for that. So a lot of municipalities are just providing free service or free water. It's council's right to charge if you want to, but it will cost us money to provide that service, to get that up and running.
Ms. Madon.
Through Mr. Mayor, there is an issue with its current location at the Bobby Orr Community Center. That's a recreation facility. It's not a facility that was designed for traffic coming, parking right at the entryway, because that's where the tap is. So it does pose a safety issue. It has posed a safety issue. There's a chronic buildup of ice. It's not able to be maintained. It does not work where it currently is. And this is something that Mr. Brown and staff have been looking at for a few months now to come up with a suitable location. And that's been a real challenge. They have looked at a lot of the town facilities. Heating it is the issue. But where it is currently, it's not acceptable. It's not suitable at a recreation facility where you have people of all ages coming into the entryway, and that's where the tap is.
Councillor Borneman, you're next.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think everyone has been relatively correct here so far. This shouldn't just solely be on the taxpayer of the town of Parry Sound. And yes, its current location is not entirely appropriate. Having said that, we've had no major mishaps with it to date. The issue of the icing is the major issue because it isn't heated. When it freezes, it either doesn't run at all or it continues to run and squirt water across the parking lot. So I think that in the short term, it should go back. This isn't budgeted for anywhere at this point. It should go back to next year's budget process, and we should give Mr. Brown direction to upgrade the faucet, the tap, whatever we're calling it at the BOCC, to allow for more better usage at that location until we can get this thing moved someplace more suitable.
Okay, Mr. Brown? I just so Councillor McCann and Councillor Keith know, I do have noted that but we're going around. So, Mr. Brown, please continue.
I wanted to thank Your Worship. I wanted to also mention that this summer was the first summer that the tent, the white tent near the hospital, had turned off their tap, the public tap that's been there for years, and it was free water. There were tons of people that would show up there, and it's been turned off. That's also an option that council considered for the BOCC, is maybe we should look at turning the tap off and then planning a revisit in 2018 budget-wise. What are the implications? When the tap was turned off at the tent, the town staff didn't receive any phone calls. We never got one phone call. It was just stopped. Did the amount of water usage at the BOC increase? Probably, but not too many people know where that tap is. Only the people that are using it on a regular basis. So, that's also something that council could consider, is that maybe we should just shut the tap off at the BOCC and then come up with a plan for 2018 as part of budget deliberations. I'm just making that suggestion.
Just so you know, I heard about it a number of times. Anyway, Councillor McCann, you're next.
Okay, so a couple of comments. I took the liberty of having a conversation with Mr. White at the farmers market tent there today, and my understanding from what he said was that once the business was metered, that they had stopped offering the water to the public. He told me that he would be willing. They have two separate water lines, and he told me that he would be willing to let the town take over one of the water lines and just set it up, turn the tap on, and there you are. It may not be ideal for the winter months, but it's certainly a very cost-effective way. And the other thing I tried to do today, and I couldn't get an answer, was I was very curious to know whether or not where the car wash is, where the old M&F used to be, where Glen Burney shop is there now, just on Bow Street. There is the car wash there. There's water there. There's some sort of shelter, and I was wondering if the town might not be able to work with the hospital as far as setting up some sort of location there. Again, another cost-effective suggestion.
That was your sort of question, or?
Yeah, like, is it possible, like, based on the information I was given today, I couldn't reach the person I need to talk to at the West Parry Sound Health Center, but in speaking with Mr. White at the farmer's market, it sounds to me like he's prepared to, say, take the front water spigot or water line, whatever you want to call it, let the town take it over, and then just provide the water there just as it was in the past. From the way he explained it, I think that once that the business was metered, that it was costing them money. And I think he also had the idea that if another meter was set up in town, that people would still come to their site for the free water. So I think he just basically just wanted to just wash his hands of the deal. But if he's not paying for the water, if the town can take over that water line, it's there, and maybe then we can plan some sort of a more permanent thing that would be available 12 months of the year, is my suggestion.
Mr. Brown?
Through your worship, as I recall, that particular site had been metered for a couple of years, and he had paid the bill for a year or two. And
well, he did, yeah. He has said he did get a refund too, to some degree, for some of the funding.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's due to the fact that it was a bulk water meter as opposed to a minimum charge. But my point is that he was billed for water consumption. The other thing is that it's a seasonal tap. It doesn't go on all year long, and it is a traffic nightmare there at times. I've watched some big vehicles try to get out in and out, and it's very it's very dangerous. So I don't know whether that. I think council should seriously consider that as well.
Okay. Mr. Pinn, then Mr. Menz, and then.
Through your worship, with regards to the tent, Mr. Brown is correct, where there's been a meter in place for a number of years. Last year was the first year where they were charged consumption. They had been charged a flat rate. But one thing to keep in mind, though, too, is that water tap is on private property. It is not a public tap. So because the bylaw says that commercial properties are charged meter, we have to charge that based on meter. There's no way around any way around giving a different fee for one business is just creating problems.
Mr. Menz's answer has to do with this line of questioning, so Mr. Menz and then Councillor Keith.
Through Mr. Mayor to Peter, if, big if, it could be worked out at the tent, through the winter it would have to be a heated system, so it couldn't just be the existing whatever system is there.
Through your worship, that's correct. That would have to be basically this. What we're suggesting is to put in a heated box system, and it would have to be plowed. It would have to be maintained, and that's all private property.
Councillor Keith?
I'm just wondering if we could also look, I know that indirectly we've been discussing in my viewpoint, a type of a partnership, but perhaps the partnership really should be a letter sent to the various municipalities, because I think that we're doing a goodwill thing there, and perhaps a letter be sent to other municipalities and see if we can get a contribution to this, because I think if we're all a big family and we share the wealth, at times we have to contribute so we have the wealth, because I think there's a good percentage of people that are using this water. They're coming into our community, then they're leaving, whether it be as a tourist or it may be that they're living outside of the town of Parry Sound. So I think this is an area where we can have sharing, and I think that this is the way we should pursue it. So I would request that in the direction that a letter be sent to municipalities explaining the cost and see if we can get some contribution there. And then whatever the results may be, we can also bring that to the next budget meeting and see how much money is available.
Mr. Brown?
I was going to suggest that I charge a quarter for what Councillor Marshall's drinking over there, but I think after hearing what Council's talking about and some of the great ideas that's been presented, I still think that maybe we should look at coming to Council in 2018 with a budget proposal, but also seriously considering turning the tap off at the BOCC in the interim. I mean, there's been a discussion and understanding that there's a safety issue there, and I understand what Councillor Borneman was suggesting, that we revisit that particular location, see what we can do to improve it. I'm not sure what we can do to improve it because that wasn't part of the on the agenda. So, I'm wondering whether it would be prudent for the town of Parry Sound to consider shutting it off as soon as the weather starts to freeze, which could be tomorrow, but and then revisit it at the 2018 budget, and then I could come back with a proposal to still do this, but have those numbers, including a bulk station that has a change system where you're buying for the water, as a suggestion.
Councillor Horn.
I guess for me, the bigger question is, why is the town of Parry Sound in the free water business? Why are we doing this? What's the bottom line? What's the benefit to the town and the taxpayers to be in the water business and giving people the availability to come into town and give them free water? I don't understand it. I don't think we should be in this business. I think we should turn the taps off. $50,000, like Councillor Marshall said, is a lot of money to provide this service. I don't think the onus should be on us. I think we should get out of the water business. That's my thoughts. When you have to look at what we can only do so much for everybody from the surrounding municipalities. And at some point, you just have to say no. And for me, let's just get out of the water business. Sorry, someone needs to say it. Maybe I'm the bad guy, but I don't know why we're doing this.
Well, part of it is to answer that question, and I hear it like when the tap went off at the tent, I heard about it like big time. And what people will tell you is that they come to Parry Sound and shop, and they appreciate getting the free water or being able to get the water. So whatever it is, but that's what gets put to me all the time. And it's not one person, it's a multitude. And there are municipalities out there in the surrounding area that supply water, but the people will come to town and get this water instead of getting it from their municipality. So anyway, yes, Councillor Horn.
So for me then, it's a question of analytics. So what are the numbers? Where are people coming from? And how much water is going out? Without relevant information, just to say a bunch of people are telling me that we come into town to use the water. I think that we have to be looking at a business model and what are the numbers? How many people are we providing this service to? What's the benefit for the town in terms of economic impact? $50,000 is a lot of money to provide a tap, and then the ongoing costs. So I think that's a question that has to be looked at too. Again, I'm the bad guy.
Just before I go to Councillor McCann and Councillor Keith, Mr. Menz does have some direction that he can put, that we could read after. I take it we're probably going to defeat this one and send it to the budget, but I think included in that should be an ask to the area municipalities to contribute something towards it, because bottom line is it's their ratepayers that are using the water, It's not town ratepayers, but the town ratepayers are paying for it. And they're artificially keeping their taxes, are able to keep their taxes low because they don't offer the same service that we do. So anyway, Councillor McCann, then Councillor Keith.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. I know in speaking to Don that there are those that certainly have abused the service. I mean, he found somebody washing their car at one point, and, trucks pull in after hours. He always hesitated to turn the tap off after night. That's true, yeah. But to the point where construction people were coming in and getting water, so it's been costing the town. I like the idea that we would make water available. We've made the washroom facilities available. Maybe we could accept some sort of form of donation at such. But I wanted to ask, what kind of a demand for water in the wintertime is there?
Through your worship, there is still a demand for water in the wintertime. It's a demand year-round. We have a water meter on that particular tap, so we can identify how much water is used, but we don't know who it is. Like, we don't have the manpower. Nobody has the manpower to staff someone there 24/7 to watch what's going on. So, another suggestion is if we shut the tap off and then put an ad or some sort of documentation on our website saying, we're planning on doing this in 2018. How many people use it? Who uses it? And see if we can get a survey done that way. Because we don't have the staff or time to keep track of who's coming. And I can tell you that it's cars, trucks, transports, our recreational vehicles, people with pickup trucks and 45-gallon drums in the back. I've seen it all there, and I've seen people actually shower from it too. So, like, there's a lot of different people out there it was late, but anyway, just.
Okay, Councillor Keith.
I think you covered it, Mr. Mayor. I do think, though, again, in my travels, even of recently, and telling you that water in the community, many communities further north do provide water. It's seen as a positive means of being in your community. You're more likely to spend, and it may be that it's inconvenience, and we're thinking of the cost, but I think the object is if we ask other municipalities, see if they're willing to help us out in this, and if they're not, then maybe when it comes to budget, we will have to look at it different, but at least let's give the other municipalities the opportunity to see if they will contribute. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Marshall, and then...
This could be very quick. I just think we need to define the water. We're talking about drinking water. To me, we're not talking about people having showers, washing their trucks, grabbing bulk water. We're talking about drinking water. If we're going to do that, let's just stick to that and make sure that if we're going to be doing some service or whatever, it's not going to be people that are going to be abusing the system, because that just really makes me ill.
Okay, so we have a resolution here on the floor right now. Do I need to read it again? No? Okay. So I'm going to call the question on it. All in favor? Opposed? It's defeated. Okay, Mr. Menz, you have something that we might be able to work with.
Hopefully, that the Public Works Director be directed to bring forward information regarding alternatives for the installation of a public tap, including a method for the charging of the water for the 2018 budget deliberations, and that the tap at the BOCC be disconnected immediately, and further, that the area municipalities be requested to participate in the funding of the service.
Okay. Do I have a mover and seconder for the direction? Okay, who wants to? I got McCann and Marshall. Yeah, Mr. Menz?
Just, Mr. Mayor, I'm just thinking the tap, shutting it off immediately, whether, like, it's not winter yet. Is there a date? Shut it off immediately and be done with it?
Councillor McCann, then Councillor Borneman.
I might suggest after the Thanksgiving weekend.
Councillor Borneman? think the end of October. Yeah. Because you've got some people up here already that stay until November, and they'll have to, yeah, I guess, yeah, Councillor Borneman.
I was gonna say, as far as that tap freezing up, it's been on all winter for the past number of years, so the end of October doesn't hurt one way or the other.
Okay. Put October 31st in there and then, okay. Any further discussion on this one? All in favor? That's carried. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We knew that was going to be a little, cause some discussion. Here, there's this.
I'm going to read the top page.
Okay. So moved by Councillor Marshall, second by Councillor Borneman, that council award the tender for granular A gravel to Fowler Construction in the amount of $13.24 per ton. This tender being the lowest tender of 3 tenders received, and further that council award the tender for winter sand supplied, blended with town supplied salt and stacked to Fowler Construction in the amount of $15.03 per ton. This tender being the lowest tender of 3 tenders received. Any discussion on this? Councillor McCann.
Just a very, very quick question. Is there a limit to how much we would spend, or do we just buy as we need?
Mr. Brown?
Through your worship, we would buy as we need.
Okay. All in favor? That's carried. Item 914, moved by Councillor Horn, second by Councillor Saunier. The council award the tender for granular A gravel to Fowler Wait a second.
Yes, I messed that up somehow.
Oh. Okay. So
So this one was...
we actually need the one for the snow plowing.
Right. I don't have that.
So I'll tell you what we'll
Ask
do.
for a mover and a seconder. I just crossed that out.
I'll just cross this out and I will, oops, yep.
So it's just the top part?
And I will, just the top part is, so, yep. So moved by Councillor Horn, second by Councillor Saunier, that council award the tender for snow plowing all 10 municipal parking lots and facilities to Adams Brothers in a combined amount of $592.50 per plowing event, plus HST, this tender being the lowest overall tender of 4 tenders received. Discussion. All in favor? That's carried. May I have a mover and seconder for the direction, please? Councillor Keith? Councillor Marshall? 921? Okay. The staff commence the procedures to stop up and close appropriately rezone and dispose of a portion of the Parry Sound Drive road allowance. Discussion. All in favor? And that's carried. (922) moved by Councillor Saunier, second by Councillor Horn. The council authorizes the application be made to the Canada Arts Presentation Fund CAPF for the April 1st, 2018 to March 31st, 2020 Stocky Center programming season, and that Rob Menz, CAO Deputy Clerk, be confirmed as the person with signing authority. Discussion. All in favor? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor Marshall, that council accepts the tender from W.S. Morgan Construction Limited in the amount of $888,180, including HST, for roof repairs and siding replacement at the Charles W. Stockey Center for the Performing Arts and Bobby Orr Hall of Fame, this being the only tender received, and that budgeted debenture be increased to reflect the tendered amount. Discussion? Councillor Saunier, then Councillor Borneman, then Councillor Marshall.
How much have we spent on the Stockey Center since it was built?
Mr. Pinn.
Through your worship, it's almost like I expected that question. So for the roof and the siding only, like I can't talk to everything else, but the roof and the siding only, after the initial roof was put on, $370,000 and $700. So $370,700, which would include repairs expenses back in the early 2010, 2011 area, as well as the phase 1 roof that we did last year, 2 years ago, and the phase 2 part that we've done since that time. So $370,700.
And we're going to add the 800,000, almost 900,000 to that total?
Through your worship, that would be correct. And the part of the roof that was initially capitalized was about $241,000. That was what we allocated as being the roof when we built the building initially.
So where I'm going with this is what, 1.2 we're at now? On roof and siding? We're bleeding here. This is pretty tough. And it's really hard to look at. Now, I'm not sure if it was the original design. There's very little we could do now. It's a giant sail. It's meant to look like a boat, and it's taking the abuse of the southwesterly wind pounding in off Georgian Bay. I get that. How can we take a look at stopping this bleeding? How can we take a look at doing some repairs that come with some finality to it? People joke about in the community, they say, why would we want to get a swimming pool? That's just another wet Stockey Center. That's what I'm getting from the town. This thing's a jewel and it's amazing and it helps us stand out, but we are paying through the nose for this thing. I'm looking for some finality here. Are we going to be doing this, having this conversation in 5 years? Like we seem to be having it every 2 to 4. So I'm looking for some answers around the table before I raise my hand on this next 900,000.
Councillor Borneman, and then was Councillor Marshall, right? Yeah.
I think Councillor Saunier stole my crib notes because, you know, part of the issue with the roof continually has been shingles blowing off, and I know that these are longer duration shingles than maybe have been used before, but I'm not convinced that the outcome will be a lot different. I'm wondering, you know, and I quite understand that the cost of steel roofing is twice what shingles are, but it's a one-time cost as compared to you know, every 5, 8, 10, 12 years, whatever you get out of this. And you know, but I have no, I'm not a contractor or an engineer. I don't know if the roof would carry that. I don't know how that would impact the concert hall. None of those things. But I think at some point in time, I guess the question that comes to my mind is, how long were the shingles that are on there now supposed to be good for, and how long have they actually lasted? And we should know whether or not a steel roof is something that would work on that building. Having said all that, I do think that the portion of the tab tonight to do the siding is something that we can go ahead with. Something that needs to be done. It is our asset, and we do need to maintain it. And I don't see a way out of that end of it.
Councillor Marshall?
Yeah, just one thing, just on Councillor Borneman's before I have a question. The problem with steel roofing, Councillor Borneman, is you've got to do a design that's basically going to accommodate a steel roof. You don't want a situation where you're going to have ice and snow falling on patrons on a warm day in January or February.
I don't think
so
that's an issue.
No, I know, but it'd be problematic. I think going with the steel siding is just as far as an observation, I think is the way to go. It's a very, very difficult location. It's a location that probably should never had asphalt shingle roofs in the original design, but we're stuck with it. And we do have to protect this asset because we have water infiltration to it. From my understanding, which kind of gets to my question, if we approve this tonight, when will the work commence? Is this going to be done before the snow flies? Yes, madam.
Through you, Mr. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I can't remember. So the intent certainly was to do the work this fall. To answer many of the discussions, or to respond rather to much of the discussion and comments around the table, the shingles were for 25 years and we're not seeing that. So, you know, it gets a lot of tough exposure, tough elements, it's out there. And I'm going to ask Mr. Menz if he recalls, but and maybe the Mayor and Councillor Borneman might recall as well, but I'm thinking that the original design of the building actually did have steel on the roof. And then that was one of the modifications because of cost at the time it was constructed. And so it was asphalt shingles that were put on in place of the steel because we were looking for targeted savings through the construction of that building. So that's what I recall somewhat. So what I might suggest is that we could, or council could amend the resolution to approve the siding, and then we could just, I could research further some of the original drawings, speak with John Este, and look to see if the engineering design that we do have in the architectural design does speak to a steel roof. If not, then it would involve an engineer and an architect to look at all of the issues that have been identified. I mean, acoustics would be another. I don't know, but right now we have an acoustically perfect performance hall. I don't know what a steel roof would do to the hall, if any. I just don't know. So those are some of the things that would need to be checked into.
Yeah. Councillor McCann and Councillor Keith.
So yes, this question would be for Ms. Middaugh. I've been reading this over and over again, and I may not be the sharpest knife in the drawer here, but why did the engineer suggest an additional almost near $150,000 over what was budgeted, the $700,000? And does that include the $44,000 that for the corrugated metal siding that's meant here, as well as a $70,000 contingency allowance?
Microphone.
Sorry.
Names.
Okay, yeah, sorry. So as noted in the report, and it was a little bit confusing certainly, because there was the original tendered price and then there was an amendment that the engineer recommended that we proceed with. So that reduced the amount, and then it was added, and then there was another amount added in because they had a further recommendation about a different product. So the final amount was the $888,180. And if you look at the letter, I believe that came from AECOM, the engineering, it clearly articulates or clearly identifies what was in there and the different amounts for the work. So the siding itself was $255,000. Then plus the asphalt shingles and the eaves trough modification, $198,000. Plus the rooftop curb unit, so that's around the HVAC system, $59,000. Plus the allowances, plus the general conditions, and those have been identified in the report, plus the HST, of which we get a percentage back, a large percentage back for the total. And so that is what has been identified in the price.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Keith?
Yes, just two comments, and I don't profess to be an authority, but just more recently, again in my travels, which is much further north, and there is very strong winds, and that was a conversation I had with various people, is I noticed there was an awful lot of steel roofs, and in those steel roofs there was bars, maybe halfway or definitely a third, and usually at least twice a third, and maybe 2/3 across the roof to prevent snow from just coming down and sliding, and as Councillor Marshall had indicated about, hitting somebody on the head. So I do think that examining if that could still be an option would be a wiser idea. On the other side of the coin, and therefore I do think that Ms. Mida's comments are quite valid in investigation, also being aware of the acoustics, because there's no doubt in my mind, if you go into a place, and that may also be when it's not as insulated, and you hear the rain, etc., going on the metal roof, you certainly have music going on, but I don't think it's the kind we want at the Stocky Centre.
Mr. Pinn?
Through your worship, Ms. Mada tweaked me to something. So just so council is aware, we get most of the HST back. So the HST portion that we would be responsible for of the 102 is only 13.8. So the cost would not be 888, it would only be about 799. So there is a significant, I'll say savings, but there is a difference on what is quoted versus what we actually pay, in case that makes the difference.
Councillor McCann?
Just based on what Councillor Sonia was talking about earlier, if we were looking at something that, sort of like the Three Little Pigs, the wolf couldn't blow down the house that was built of brick. Is it possible that perhaps we could just look at putting brick on the side of the building eventually that might hold for a little longer? I don't know, I'm just asking.
Ms. Mada?
To you, Mr. Mayor. So what is proposed for the replacement of the hardy board siding is a steel siding. So they have researched it. I mean, I'm working with the engineers and the architects, so they have researched a product that they feel will be somewhat resilient to the conditions, the sun, the wind, all the rest of it. So it is steel siding that they are recommending. So we haven't discussed brick. There would have to be some adjustments made to the framing to accommodate the sills that the brick would need to sit on, certainly.
Okay, Councillor Sonia.
I would like to move that we separate the siding from the shingles, and we can go in two separate directions, because as we've been talking a lot about tonight, it's just about responsibility and getting the facts, and I want to have better facts in front of us before we decide on the shingles. How much is it going to cost? Is it going to cost us $3 million? Is it going to cost us $5 million? And what is the rate of return? Bearing in mind that manufacturers' warranties mean nothing. They're not going to own up to it. Oh, sorry, you only got 6 years. I'd like to see us go and get that warranty and cash in on it. So I would like to separate so we could, I agree with the siding. The steel siding looks strong. I disagree with the shingle at this time. So I'd like to separate the two.
Well, we can modify this one, and that's what we've been looking at. So what we could do is make an amendment that council accepts the tender from W.S. Morgan Construction Limited in the amount of $255,000 plus contingency plus HST for siding replacement, and then the rest of it's the same. So we're lowering the amount, okay, we're getting rid of the roof, okay, and everything else is the same. That is the amount for the siding, plus you have a contingency, plus HST. Ms. Mada.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would need to speak with the engineer as well, because the general conditions, or that allowance for the general conditions, those are things like mobilization, mobilizing the site, getting it ready, if any equipment needs to be rented. So there would need to be an amount in there. I just don't know what that would be, because it wasn't broken out like that for the two separate projects. So.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Mada and then Mr. Pinn.
So through Mr. Mayor, I would suggest, so there was some urgency to get it going, now that was the timeline that the engineer had pulled together because there was all of the roofing, all of the siding. I think maybe the best option would be to postpone it to the next meeting, be able to get some clarification around the contingencies and the allowance so we have more specific cost as opposed to some uncertainty.
Let's do that so we can tighten
Okay.
the numbers up. And maybe we'll have a better idea on the other two at that time. Yeah, so we have Councillor Saunier moving that and Councillor Keith to postpone it to, what was the date again? September 19th. Okay. All in favor of postponing? That's carried. Yeah. Moved by Councillor Marshall, second by Councillor McCann, that council hereby receives and accepts the financial report for Q2 2017, June 30th, 2017, attached to Schedule A, and further that council hereby approves the expenses for members of council for the period January 1st to June 30th, 2017, attached as Schedule B. Discussion. All in favor? That's carried. Okie dokie. I guess there's a pink thing at the back there on that one. So. Oh, okay. All right, okay, good enough. Then. So moved by Councillor Saunier, seconded by Councillor Horn, that bylaw number 65, being a bylaw to authorize a site plan / development amending agreement between the Town of Parry Sound and 12 College Drive, M2 Developments Incorporated, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councillor Saunier, second by Councillor Horn. The bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Councillor Marshall and then Councillor McCann.
Yes, I have a question for Mr. Elgie. Reading through the report, there was some discussion in it about a sidewalk, and it doesn't look like the developer is looking at putting a sidewalk in until the third phase of the development. What rationale? Is it just a costing issue, or is it something that putting the sidewalk in would interfere or would have to be redone with the third phase? Just trying to get the rationale there.
Through your worship, essentially it was cost. It wasn't budgeted for at this time. Honestly, the real time to do it would have been when the road was adopted at the offset of phase 1. So I think with them agreeing that if phase 3 happens, that they'll do it at that point. Let's hope that it happens.
Councillor McCann?
Actually, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything further on this one? No? Councillor Keith?
Yes, Mr. Elgie, well, I'm just wondering if there's no sidewalk there, what are people expected to do? Because it just tells me that there's a problem going to happen here because people that are using these facilities and that aren't necessarily all the spryest in the world.
Through your worship, essentially it's a paved shoulder today, so it's in the winter it would probably be covered with snow and not be usable at all. I am a fan of a sidewalk being put there. If council wishes, they could defer this bylaw and request that a sidewalk be put in. That would be your prerogative to do so. The bylaw as attached, though, does not have it included, and I left it for phase 3, just as I noted in my report.
Councillor Keith?
I request that it be deferred because I think a sidewalk should be put in now, please.
Councillor Saunier? Okay. All in favor of deferring or postponing? That's carried. Okay. Next meeting? September 19th, right? open. Moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Borneman, that bylaw number 2017-6766, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a customer relation and collection services agreement between A1 Credit Recovery and Collection Services Incorporated, A1CRCS, and the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? It's carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor McCann. The bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Discussion? Councillor Borneman?
Through your worship, sorry, Councillor Borneman, we were moving the mic here. Could you repeat the question?
Maybe. I said, Mr. Pinn, maybe you could advise the public what we're up to here.
Through your worship, this is for provincial offenses. What we were approached by this company who does collections for other POA courts about doing what's known as a second run. So we do have NCO who does our collections already. This would be a second attempt for amounts owing from 2000 to 2016. What I've been informed is that they go through a process where they get the most up-to-date contact information through the credit bureau, which is not something that all collection companies necessarily do. And they also do a tracking system, so as soon as something happens that changes the information on that bureau, they get pinged and then they attempt to collect it. One thing to keep in mind is that this does not cost the municipality anything. The cost of collection, the commission charge, is borne by the person who pays the fine. So what I would suggest to people, what happens though, once we give the list to the collection company, we can't take the payments anymore. So if you owe any money from 2000 to 2016, I suggest that you pay it in the next day or two, or else your fines are going up about 45%. So that's the commission charge. So if you owed $100, you will be paying $145.
That's what we're up to. Okay. Anything further? All in favor? That's carried. Okay, so there's nothing more on that. Oh. Yeah. Okay, do you have a script for the end? Okay. That's okay. Well, I'll wing it. I'll wing it. Moved by Councillor Horn, second by Councillor Saulnier, that bylaw number 2017-6767, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having their second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councillor Horn, second by Councillor Saulnier, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. All in favor? That's carried. You want to talk about it? We're just getting the script here for the end. Okay, prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next regular meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled to take place at 52 Sequin Street in the council chambers located on the top floor. Public access to the building is off Gibson Street. There will only be one regular council meeting. Oops. The next regular council meeting is Tuesday, September 19th, 2017 at 7 p.m. Okay, where are we now? Okay. All regular council meetings will be held on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except for August at 7 p.m., otherwise notified. Agendas and notices of special council meetings will be posted on the town's website at www.parrysound.ca prior to a council meeting. Should you wish to obtain an electronic copy of the agenda with attachments, please go to our website and make that request or contact the deputy clerk at the municipal office. The minutes of council meetings will be posted within 2 days after the council meeting on the town's website and will be posted on the bulletin board located in the municipal office entrance. Yeah, I know. Cogeco airs the Parry Sound Council meetings. They do it Saturday morning now, right? So Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. Yeah.
And we live stream.
Yeah, and otherwise the meetings are live streamed. Should you have any inquiries regarding scheduling and times for viewing the council meetings, please visit www.tvcogeco.com under scheduling or call the Town of Parry Sound office at 746-2101. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.